Welcome. Tonight we are fireside chatting with James from PostHog. I'm Sarah Drinkwater. I run a solo fund called Common Magic. I invest in products with community at their core. What does that mean? That means products alone where technology is not enough to win, where it matters that you're building with people, not for people. You can see why I'm so excited for this conversation. Hi, James.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, and thank you to Granola for having us.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we have about 45 minutes of questions, and we've got folks tuning in from home. And I want to start with a really basic one. If we met today and I didn't know anything about PostHog, how would you describe what you do?
This is actually exceptionally hard for us to answer this question. So you are supposed to have a good answer to this, apparently. We aim to provide every single product that developers need to build a successful product themselves. It's free from a money perspective to use something that's open source, but you're still asking users to give you their time, which is valuable, or their data too, which is a trust thing. And so it originally came from how can we get early users, like how can we build some trust, and transparency felt like the foundation for that. So we kind of thought, well, if we do a really good job of explaining who we are, like what we're doing, the business model we'll have in the future and so on, and we kind of humanize ourselves a bit here, it will just help build trust with potential users. So yeah, we started from really, really early. Like when we launched, we had quite a lot of information available, like within the first couple of weeks of the product existing. So yeah, getting early users was where it started with. It's kind of shifted over time. When we got, I think one of the other things that happened when we were early, my co-founder is much stronger technically than me. And so basically he was building and I was running around like, just trying to let him build like literally all of the time. And so to the point where like, I'd be like, you keep coding, I'll go like buy breakfast or whatever. And like, I'll do errands and like do all the marketing and blah, 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 blah. So partly I was trying to find like, okay, what can I contribute to the company if there's a lot to build in the early days. And so I thought, okay, well, I should do a really good job with the website. And because I'm quite focused on this, I think if we were both technical, we wouldn't have put as much energy into the content side of what we're doing. But I think that wouldn't have been for the best because this site has been really important, it turns out, to getting people to kind of follow along. And it's wound up being this like slightly cult-like thing as we've got larger, basically.
Well, and that's really interesting. To your point around if you've been more technical, if you know, I think all of us have seen these double co-founded dev tool teams and products where there's not a lot of information on the website when it first goes live.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, tell us more about your ICP, and particularly I'm curious because when you're talking about like trust, transparency, all of these things are also ways of building trust with an audience that is notoriously fussy about its tools in the best possible way.
Yeah. So I could go on about ICP and like personas for ages, but on the whole, we're building like primarily for kind of software teams that are very technical, or where our real sweet spot is. I think this sort of came from, like in the early days, we built PostHog's the 6th product that we built. So we built 5 things that didn't work out before. They got to varying degrees of...
Were they all called PostHog as well?
No, they're a variety of other also embarrassing names. I don't know why I had this real thing. I was like, I want to get some weird, clever sounding name. And they just sound very lame with hindsight. But we built all these things and I've been a developer before, a very bad one, and I've also been a VP of sales, and so feel free to boo. But basically, we started building tools for sales leaders because I was like, okay, I've got a list of problems I've encountered in my job. Let's try and solve some of these. And we found that selling to a non-technical audience we found really hard because like trying to get product market fit is an existential. It's like a multivariate problem where. Like, it could be your product is genius, but like you're terrible in meetings, or you're speaking to the wrong people, or your website sucks, or something else is, or if there's a competitor that's doing something that means you're screwed. Like, there's so many ways you can fail that you just don't understand fully. And we felt that like that sales persona we were targeting initially was quite a noisy persona to build for because they would take meetings all day long. And now I make fun of meetings on the internet professionally. And but they were like, they would take meetings, but then wouldn't do anything. And so I think we got to the point where Tim and I were like, yes, we've built this amazing sales territory management product. And had 15 sales leaders lined up at like Series B, C sort of stage companies. And we all seemed very excited. And we sent them the link to the product. And not a single one out of the 15, 14 of them didn't even click the link to create the account. One did and then didn't create an account. And so we moved on. But we're like, oh, their words don't match what they're saying. Their actions don't match their words. And so we thought, well, we really want to build for there is a lesson in this, which is like, I really wish we could build for people who do kind of do what they're saying to remove one of the variables from this problem. And so we're like, support people who are really good who are very problem solvery, or we thought engineers were also in that category. Yeah. And engineers have been really fun for us to work with as an audience in particular. We do have other personas that we build for now, but they're kind of hyper clear about what they want, hypercritical at the same time, which is actually a really good combo if you're trying to build a startup for them, because you will learn what sucks very fast on the internet, basically, without having to do calls. I would recommend building for technical users in general.
Something you said earlier that I loved was the idea of doing a Hacker News pre-mortem.
Yep.
Like, we all know that if something gets fought about in the comments, that's always a good sign, right? If people are willing to kind of spend the time. But I was really curious about what's this exercise?
So it's kind of our guiding, like, especially in the early days, we would write, one of the things, I was like, okay, how can I do something useful as Tim's building his product? I was like, well, okay, I'll write some content that could go viral on Hacker News. And I was like, well, the only stuff that goes viral here, I started looking at it, I'm like, man, there's this wall of articles that are quite intimidating. Like, I think at the time, I was looking at this in 2020, there was an article on like, it was literally on like the innards of how a lawnmower works or something. And I'm just like, man, I don't know anything. And I was like, there is one thing I know, which is about our own company. And that's one thing I am an expert in. So I thought, okay, I'll just write about us because I can get that right. So we started writing content, but when we were writing this, the framework was like, okay, if I write this, like how could this thing go wrong on Hacker News? So we'll think about, like, if we do like a pricing change, for example, we'll be exceptionally careful to, I think there's one thing that like screw up your brand pretty easily as a dev tool is like you just do a pricing email badly, and that can like really, so we're just like, how would this get criticized very heavily on Hacker News? Like if we launch a new product and we talk about it or something. And if you go through Hacker News launches for products, there are just repeated themes of things that developers will criticize, no matter how right or wrong you think, or how pernickety it might kind of seem, but it's, like it doesn't explain what it does. They don't have a business model, it's going to die. I don't know what's going on with their data. Privacy policy is weird. Like seems too cheap or too expensive. I don't know. Like just like there's a whole list of these. And so we do kind of if we're going to do something that's like maybe marketing oriented, or I don't know, if we had downtime and someone lost some data, for example, how do we handle the interaction? We should assume that interaction ends up on Hacker News. And then think about how it get critiqued, and then that kind of guides us as to how to do a good job. It often involves losing money in the short run, but then long run ending up with an inbound business model, which is 4 or 5 times more efficient, basically.
Love and trust longer term. Well, I really like the thing of PostHog is loved and adopted, not sold. You know, that reframe of how you think about outbound versus inbounds, which is quite, especially in the SaaS dev tool landscape, still quite unusual, right?
Yeah, it's been really important to us, this. So we're in the like mid-tens of millions now, and we're growing super quick, and it's become from like we're only just starting to experiment with outbound in a very light way, but it's not driving any of our revenue or anything. So we've been able to get really, really far. I spoke to other dev tools. Some advice I got in the early days was just the first week of thinking about the company. It was basically like go talk to the world's best people at the thing you're doing. So I just messaged them. And one thing I learned was, all these other open source projects that became multi-billion-dollar companies, I couldn't find, like, I think I spoke to about 3 in a row where they all got past 10 million in revenue before they did any outbound at all. And so we're like, okay, this feels like a big move because it's very unusual to get there without adding outbound, especially I think with AI slightly changing this because of how tools are getting adopted, but like back in like regular old SaaS world in 2020, it was very unusual. And so we were like, yeah, okay. And I can see this from a user perspective too. Like our developers don't want to take sales calls basically. So how can we make it ultra accessible to get into the product and think about the audience from first principles? But it's been amazing running a business that can, once you can get that kind of magic going, it has made it super easy to be in a really good financial position because we don't get into this cycle of like, if we have to buy growth. It just doesn't feel like that. Like a good example was we went on a offsite once to Aruba in the Caribbean, and we turned up and I was like, oh man, we've really splashed out on this offsite. Like we chose to splash out because we thought, okay, there's nothing else going on this year. We're not going to fundraise. Like we're just going to build stuff. So we should have something that's a bit of a party. I was like, I know how much money we spent on this thing. And I can remember looking at our revenue dashboard and I was like, within like 2 days, it's like everyone's just literally like drinking cocktails and pina coladas and stuff. And then by day 2, like we cover the whole cost of the offsite. No one's actually like doing any normal day-to-day work. And because it kind of feels like that, it just makes it feel very resilient. What's kind of going on? Like we're not like we don't have the risk of like we haven't got enough money, so we have to like not
single points of failure.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been really smooth feeling because of that. I think there are downsides. You can get really complacent with an inbound business too, where you can be like, oh, it's cool, we can just chill out and like drink pina coladas, it turns out. But then you're like just undershooting your own potential. So if you're ambitious, like if you can get into the state of bootstrap business, like fantastic. It probably is very hard. You have to give a lot at the start to get there. But with a VC-backed company, if you're like truly trying to take a huge swing, we also have heard this from other ones where if you end up with a lot of inbound demand, you may not be working as hard as you could be, too. It's something we've learned a bit later, basically.
How do you think about, you have an open roadmap to this point around product evolution over time? Like obviously one of your core products is usage, right? So like how have you used PostHog to understand how PostHog should develop? How is the age of AI evolving that or not, as the case may be?
Sure. So we very, very heavily dog food our own stuff to the point where it's painful because we replace lots of existing products. So for example, like we've never had Google Analytics on our website. I think all of our competitors do, which is always amusing me because they're super lame. But it does mean that sometimes we can't get reports that we need, and it's like, oh, this is really annoying, but like it's better to feel what is actually painful to us. Like we built a data warehouse product, and we have a really complicated billing and reporting now. So we have like about 16, 17-ish products now in development, like either in production or in development with lots of users. And they're all charged differently. And so our reporting is like a freaking nightmare to make work. But like we insisted on doing this inside our own warehouse and not having other products to do this. Just again, we would just build the basic. It kind of forces you to prioritize stuff that really matters in the product if your own team are struggling. And so every single one of our products we heavily use ourselves. So we use very minimal third party. The nature of our product strategy means we use very few third party tools, and then often what winds up happening every time we do a hackathon, someone's like, oh, we should, I can't remember what it was. There was some product that was literally costing us like $6 a month or something. Someone's like, we should build this. It's like, we probably just spent $6 a month. No, we should build this. So there's a lot of that. It's a very big culture of building ourselves because we like everything on top of the same data set and the same architecture and having all the context in one place for all the different customer tools that you use.
But how does that work in, like, where are the limits of co-building? Have you had, especially like I've submitted a comment on your website today, it was great. But when you have an open roadmap, how do you get the balance right between data versus like intuition with a totally new product, for example? Yeah,
so with a new product, it's very intuition based. I think this is also the same for existing stuff. Like sometimes we've like given talks on like how to like set up your data stack or whatever. And we're just like if you're super early stage, like if you're like 2 people, my plan is to basically be like use session recording so you can watch video clips of your users, put like some very basic metrics and then move on with life and just keep building. And you'll need the other stuff later. It's good to start collecting the data from what's going on. I think most people over-index on the like pure data, like product usage graph is going to tell you, I don't know, like you're looking at retention or something, it will tell you have a problem. It's not going to tell you what the answer is, or conversion rate being kind of crappy or getting worse. Again, like these are potential things you could work on. But for us, I think it's very easy to get into a local maxima if you're too data driven.
It's such a good Silicon Valley phrase.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what the British equivalent is. So you can end up on a small hill when there's a bigger one.
It sounds more chic saying local maxima, right?
If you want to climb a really big hill. So you can, I think you can build yourself into and so the most important stuff has come from randomly engineers deciding, hey, we should build like a second product, for example, rather than improving on we already have exclusively, kind of thing. We should do both. And then then 2 became like 10 becomes like, oh, how can we build hundreds? Intuition is very heavy. And today it's a very large. It's very mixed now. Like we have growth reviews for every single product where we look at like over 100 metrics for some of them, and we're looking at session recordings all the time. But then for new products, there's still there's a huge like wedge of our energy is just going into, like at the moment we're working on like automatic code fixes based on the problems we can detect in your product. And it's all, we just think this is like, well, we can see this happening, like engineers fix problems. If we can just accelerate something that's happening as a behavior massively by doing it whilst they're asleep, we think this will be successful.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a big bet to take, it just means it's more important to get into users' hands sooner.
Yeah.
So we can start validating, are we
The
idiots
bet.
or not, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think about, like, you stopped monetizing self-hosting? Like, talking of like big bets, intuition, tell us more about what led to that decision and what did that create a space for you to do instead?
Sure, yeah, so for context, we started with an open source project and then we used to charge people. Our starting hypothesis was like, we're just gonna do product analytics and we're gonna target people who need to self-host it in their own infrastructure because no one else does this and we're intimidated by all these, like, there are multiple billion-dollar competitors doing cloud-based product analytics like Amplitude or Mixpanel, not launched directly, Heap, which sold. That wasn't a billion, but quite big. And we thought we wouldn't be able to survive there. And so we built this like self-hosted thing, and then you could pay for extra features. And that worked. Like we got good takeoff on Hacker News, and we started making money. But then it kind of occurred to us, we're like, it's like a lot of users were like, why are you self-hosting this product? It doesn't make sense. Like it'd be like random two-person startups have no data privacy requirements really at all. And we're like, oh, we should create this is before, was it before GDPR today? The clever ones don't care too much at that stage. But then we kind of realized like a lot of users were just self-hosting for no reason, and we're like, this would just frankly be easier if we host it for you. Yeah. We should have a cloud product. It turns out cloud was a good idea. So we built this cloud product, and then we had the self-hosted one, and then it got to the point where self-hosted went from literally 100% of our revenue.
Yeah.
The cloud one grew so much quicker. The self-hosted was growing, but dropped 10% of our overall revenue.
Wow.
But it was generating 70% of our support issues. We were like, literally, like people were sending us, they would take their mobile phone and take a photo of their screen showing AWS because they're in some really backward enterprise that can't, or not backward, but like very conservative enterprises. And we're literally debugging Kubernetes through screenshots of screens in Slack. Like none of us are having a good time.
Your team was like, ugh.
Yeah. And so it was horrible. And then we also had a cloud product to look after. And so eventually we got rid of the paid product entirely, even though it was generating money. Like most people, nearly everyone moved over to cloud. We just went all in on cloud instead. The cloud thing was this was something that was very surprising to us, was the first users on cloud were like, what is wrong with you? This product is just worse than all the competition. And I think that partly was because, well, it has been totally possible to compete with big incumbents. Kind of because developers want this thing to be successful really hard because the company's doing a lot right in their eyes and like in our opinion too, which meant that like we had this like little crowd that loved us enough that they're willing to put up with the worst product because I think the branding was stronger and we're targeted at a slightly different audience to everyone else. And then very quickly, ditching the self-hosted thing meant we could go wild on product strategy and just build like our wildest dreams out, basically. Yeah. And so it's like resolving Kubernetes problems. We were like, oh, let's just build like 10 products. It's easier.
What would you not build?
Yeah, so we've really questioning the boundaries has been a very hard question for us to solve. Yeah. We've oscillated between like, are we just like, I don't know if you've seen the midwit meme on the internet of like, so you've got like idiot, genius, then like someone who's very, very clever with a very complicated strategy. And we're like, are we being midwits trying to have a really complicated sounding strategy? And it's like, we should just build whatever. It doesn't matter. If it's like something developers use, it's just convenience that it's in the same place. That was probably a bit too much. And we concluded in the end, like, oh, if it's got customer data in it, it makes sense for it to be in the same place. So for example, we would build like a support platform very eventually one day, but we wouldn't build like your financial forecasting software or something that's like really far removed from the same data. So we've honed it on that, which seems to be working well. We're now building a bunch of coding tools as well that help you go from just analytics to doing stuff, which is a big bet for us.
Active versus passive.
But the learning I think from this again was with the self-hosted thing and the cloud journey was we actually didn't take a bet early enough on this. And we were, I think because the background is like we had like 5 failed products, finally got money, and then it's like, oh, this money's good, but it's not great. Like it feels like it was really hard to ditch the paid self-hosted stuff, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. We did it way too late. We should have done it like 6 months or a year sooner. So we climbed onto 2 for too long. I think if you're ever feeling like your strategy is like peak of the midwit curve, like it's complicated and overly clever sounding, like, yeah, we'll offer both sets of infrastructures, different buyers, blah, blah, blah. It's like you're not focused enough, you're being kind of dumb. Like any kind of good strategy, I think should just sound like a very simplistic bet. Like if I asked my 5-year-old to give me a strategy, I probably should listen to her over what I would come up with. So taking big bets has been very valuable to us. And I think that's the other thing to just consider is like in the space of the universe, if you're starting an early stage startup, you're just default screwed. Like your idea is probably currently not working, you don't have enough money, or you're going to run out of money because no one cares. So you have to take, it's all upside. So you should have upside oriented bets that you're taking. You are not going to win on being careful in the you are there are boundaries to this, like don't spend all your money in 2 weeks or something, but like product wise, larger bets I think are much more exciting for your team to work on, including yourselves. Like I almost feel like people do a better job of a harder product to build. They're much easier to raise money for because there's more upside.
Counterintuitively, investors, like I love a big, I love a massive pitch. And I think it's when you see somebody, it's so much easier to sell a really exciting, crazy hard thing than it is to sell yet another version of the same product. Yeah,
exactly. Like I think it would be easier to build like, I'm not joking, let's build like a hypersonic plane than to build accountancy software or something. I'm sure someone's building that and I'm deeply sorry. But you should consider planes. And then there was the third one. So it's also much
on PostHog.
And most excitingly, like regardless of the investor stuff, is actually like getting customers is easier because customers are humans and they're excited about cool things like hypersonic planes. And you'll get much more buzz. So if you're working on something that's fundamentally kind of remarkable, it is super easy to market remarkable stuff. It's really hard to market something that's really boring. It is possible, but harder.
How do you think about, when you look at your ambition now versus 5.5 years ago, has that changed? And how much has geography kind of come into that?
Yeah, it's...
so you went through YC in 2020 in COVID.
Yeah. So we did YC 2020 in COVID. We're doing this like self-host, we spent 6 months by ourselves, kind of bootstrapping. And then we're like, we think this is actually this actually isn't the style of business we want to build. We did YC, pivoted in YC to PostHog, spent 4 weeks to build it, went on to Hacker News after 4 weeks, and then it kind of just took off and became inbound ever since. But we were doing like this self-hosted thing that like perhaps if we nailed it, would have built like maybe would have built like a unicorn, but that would have been the ceiling, I think. There's like no way I think that business would have got that, which is great, but it's not like the total top-end outcome that we want now at all. And then as we start going multi-product, we're like, oh, hang on, like the world's kind of our oyster here. Like we can kind of just build all of it. And it turns out that every new product we build takes off. They improve. There are more reasons to show up. There's more things you can expand onto. We can make every product cheaper when we do this because if we sell you 10 things, we can charge less money, which accelerates our growth even more. And so the ambition has just gone up and up and up. It's still, we're pushing our ambition up further and further and further. Like now we're looking at topics like we're trying to get towards product autonomy at the moment with AI. Where we can like ship fixes for your stuff whilst you're asleep. We think business autonomy on a longer horizon may be possible as well. If you start looking at like, well, if it's the same customer data that the sales team are also looking at, is useful for like, can we automate more of that work? And so we have iteratively increased it. I think that might be with hindsight, if we'd just gone straight in at the top level, I think actually it probably would have worked better than us kind of weaving our way here. Because it's kind of easy if you know like, okay, this is like, the top long-term thing we're specifically aiming for is very big. I think it just would have increased the excitement throughout the life of the company, basically, and probably would have helped us market better earlier on and stuff. So it wasn't easy. I think, again, it's probably to your point around geography, it probably is somewhat of I'd only worked for companies that had done like all right before. I've never worked for a company anyone in here has probably ever heard of. And so I think I was coming from a background of like, okay, everything's always a little bit screwed in startup world, rather than like let's take a massive moonshot. But it turned out going for a moonshot was better for everyone. So in general, like when people are talking to me, I'm like, I feel like this idea, like go bigger, go bigger, go bigger. And you may find it's actually easier. So it's a mistake I think we made just not being more ambitious at the start. It's taken us, I think ourselves, like for me and my co-founder, it's taken us time to, I think, build the confidence to push more. But it's becoming, I think it's almost becoming more normalized that the standard's going up. Like I think AI has meant a lot of magic companies are appearing. You can kind of do stuff that literally looks like magic now. And I think at the moment, like a lot of startup funding and energy in general is way over-indexed on pretty pragmatic ideas. Whereas like, I think one of the things that's really startling, if you read like, how was OpenAI made in the first place? Some of the thought process from some of the co-founders was like, well, humans have brains. Brains are a physical object. We can build one. Let's do it. Now they're whatever, like 300 billion or something. But like it's come very much more from like a first principally sort of like this would be really cool and something the world would need, and then working out how to get it off the ground. You do need, but you can't also just be like, okay, let's like make life multi-planetary, and then start building the like houses for Mars. You have to be like, okay, we'll build a relatively very sensible satellite launching business or something. If you're a product-oriented company, at least, like I think your company should be structured around what it needs to be good at. In the early days, we're like, okay, are we winning on? We basically felt like there's a lot of decisions here where we either have to pick for like more velocity or more control and more polish. And it's like, well, we're going for velocity because we're trying to build dozens of products. And so if engineers can just decide what to build, there's no meetings between any of them. There's like by design, not much collaboration between teams. It's within the teams. It just hugely reduces the overhead of getting something out the door, but it is more chaotic. But we felt that was the right place, and we just need to trust our engineers to pick stuff, and then we'll focus on just like good communication internally. Like we have a handbook that explains how we work. We put quite a lot of energy into all hands and things.
Offsites, you said.
We do offsites where we do like a big, this is how last year went, this is what the plan is, this is what we're thinking. But that structure has been it's been one of the most important things I think we've done. Especially now we're scaling, it feels like it's really advantageous.
Well, and you said you're hiring a lot of people right now.
Yeah. So,
how do you think about like what makes somebody right for PostHog? Are there particular attributes you'd say? Like, I really liked this side project. There's a one pager on like, we love side projects. Don't make, like it's okay for you to do this while also working at PostHog, especially open source. So it's very much. It's almost easier to explain what's not a good fit. But
it's
what's
kind
not a
of.
good fit?
So people who need instructions, I think, is a big thing. Like people who are very proactive do
like
really,
you're
really
the
well.
driver.
You're very much like driving the car rather than the passenger. That's good and bad. You're driving the car, you can't sleep. Oh, you can, but it's bad. But it's a lot more fun being the driver if you like being the driver and having control. And people are more like intrinsically motivated to get stuff done. So like there are no deadlines internally. We don't care if people entirely change their goals halfway through the quarter and miss them and do something else. So we just want them to reflect and do feedback on it, basically. And there'll be feedback on like, you just didn't get it done. Or it might be like, no, it's great, you just dropped this thing. But very, very proactive people who are just kind of like easy to deal with and low ego. I think it's a very direct place to work. So, and like increasingly so, I'd say at scale, like I'm realizing like we're having to be more and more direct when we just see stuff that we don't think is right. So we don't have people bring in a style that we don't want, whatever. So the ego thing is in order that feedback can happen because it's trust and feedback over process. Because it's quicker. So people need to be able to cope with saying like, hey, I really hate this particular thing for these specific reasons. Or this is how I approach this better or whatever. But those are like kind of the two, and like positivity, I think is the third. So like we hire optimists because if you want to build like $100 billion company or something, you need to be optimistic is like foundationally important. Like I do think there's a real thing of like, one of my favorite quotes is pessimists are cracked and optimists are rich. And like,
we love that.
And it does feel like that a lot when you're trying to get like, because we'll have literally like two people competing with like 100 people in another company successfully. It's like, this is going to work. We think this, like we've seen it work repeatedly before. So those are the main three things really.
How do you think about fun? That's one of your core values as a company.
So it's not technically a core value.
Sorry.
But it's all right. This time. We don't like super proactive encouraging it, but like I just think a lot of companies are just for some reason boring. It's just I don't know. We take engineering like velocity very, very seriously. People will get feedback if their work has like
surely that's
bad
also
taste or
fun
something.
for that particular community.
But a lot of it is like I don't know if people are enjoying themselves, it just naturally becomes a fun place. Like if people are choosing to do the stuff, like because we're not like micromanaging, we're not saying like you need to achieve this by this day. And people are like self-selecting into the work they want to do, it naturally gives you a more positive environment. So then it's easier to have a fun time. I also think some of the work in particular, like I think if you're doing something literally to what you consider a world-class standard, it just becomes entertaining. Like the website is like this, where it's like, this is like, because once you get to like the last % of effort, where like this is the best thing at X in the world, everything you do is remarkable again, and it's interesting, and it generates growth, and you get feedback from the internet.
And you feel great.
Which is very fun. And so you can just sort of see how people are like, I mean, literally, we have a channel where we like get all these brand mentions in, and it'll just be like, PostHog has the stupidest website I've ever seen. That it's like, I fucking love this company. This is the best website on earth. You're like, well, which is it?
Maybe it's both.
Yeah, it is both. So
Midwit curve.
Yeah. But you get into this, it's this like self-selected kind of environment. I think it's a bit chaotic. It's just inherently an amusing place to work.
But
probably.
you keep saying the word chaotic, but it sounds like it runs super well functioning, right? Does it not feel like that sometimes?
Yeah, I think the only bits that are hard are when you have to coordinate between teams.
I was going to ask
is the downside, basically. Yeah. So we've bent the org structure a bunch of times to do this. So like we redid the UX for the entire platform once, and we had one guy doing it, and he just wasn't able to ship fast enough because so much more stuff would be built that he couldn't complete the task. And we're like, actually, we need to create like a little project team for a quarter where we'll pull 3 people off different teams, and they'll plop them onto this task, get the whole thing done, and then they'll just go back to where they were. So we do things like that to coordinate. So we kind of use Conway's law, where you'll ship the org structure. So we don't think about like microservices, monoliths, or any of this stuff. It's much more like kind of think the org structure actually determines what we build. So we're trying to map the org structure to the product strategy that we have, is where it comes from. So yeah, it only feels chaotic because there's just a lot happening at once. There's a ton of communication, and coordination is a bit funky sometimes, but not too bad. But yeah, the results work really well.
How does that work? You know, you are co-CEOs, which is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think about the fluidity of your roles?
Yeah.
And what are rituals you and your co-CEO have to kind of make it work?
Yeah. So I run PostHog with someone called Tim. We started off with we didn't think about it. So we started with me as the CEO and Tim as CTO because he's more technical, which I think is what most people just default into with no further thought. And that did reflect our roles in the very early days. Like I was doing kind of sales and marketing stuff and fundraising, and he was doing building things. As we're getting, every Friday we'll spend like an hour and a half together. I have like time blocked out so we can run for longer if we want to, where we'll just talk through good things and bad things. I would advise strongly you don't just have a list of, like, if you just default to like, it's very easy to just talk about problems that a company's having. And we're like, man, after a while, we're like, that's what we defaulted into. We just like, what do we need to talk about? And it would just be like 6 things that are broken. I'm like, this is actually quite a demotivating session we do each Friday because it's like, such one crushing problem after another. And so we consciously were like, okay, we'll put like fun stuff, then bad stuff. And so we'll do the fun stuff first. Again, because the startup will only succeed on upside. Like you can't like, you have to fundamentally be working on something that's going to grow and think about that. We're just not thinking about growth enough. We're just thinking about like, so-and-so didn't accept a job offer from us because we're not paying enough or something. And like, that's not going to make or break us. But like, if people don't like what we're working on in the first place. So that was one thing, is like split out consciously, like upside related and downside related tasks, and go through, make sure you have something for both. We started swapping jobs around a lot. Like I kind of kept feeling like I wanted to ask Tim, like I did our early sales. So I did our first maybe 600K of revenue or 700K of revenue or something because I had a sales job before. But like Tim kept asking about deals, and I kept asking about like what we're building. And every Friday I'm like, oh, I just like, I think this is like, I was sort of feeling like what we're building is kind of uninspired. And I think he felt like you're not on top enough of the, especially when we hired 2 people to start doing sales once I got it to about 600K by myself. And I think he wanted more like organization in the sales team, because I'm a little bit artisanal in style. And
we love that. It's a beautiful thing.
And so we just swapped, and he started doing sales stuff. And then it was quite funny because in interviews he'd be like CTO, but he just runs the sales team and I'm doing product work, because then we had more engineers involved, or I did like a lot of marketing. So like we really swapped around as a bigger level of scale, and more like maybe 100, maybe not in that, maybe like 70 people. We just end up with like roughly half the company reported to each of us, and we're both like, it's been another week of one-on-ones. Here's to a next week, and we concluded like we're not terrible at managing quite a lot of people each, but we're also not world class at it either. Like we're just reasonable, and we're like, this doesn't feel like that is therefore not the thing we should be focused on. And so we like promoted there's someone called Charles at PostHog who is quite long suffering, and we gave him way more stuff to look after, I think, and we promoted someone called Raquel, who's a superb IC engineer, and just gave her responsibility for all of the engineering teams. We basically went, okay, Charles and Raquel, you're like your job is to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah.
And Tim and I are just going to do projects that we think we can help, which are generally 0 to 1 things. And that worked incredibly well. So now, like literally, because I was like, I just had this like to-do list of things I wish the company was doing, but it's not. I'm not getting to it because I'm doing like loads of meetings and solving random problems where like, someone's like, this person's moving to a different country. We need to think about how that affects pay or whatever random stuff that would be. And so we got people who are organized to run that stuff smoothly. And then
that freed up time for you to kind of work on.
Yeah. And we actually, I stopped doing one-on-ones entirely. We got rid of most one-on-ones in the whole company.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, okay, cool. Like we need to take AI extremely seriously.
Yeah.
I'm exclusively going to do like sort of designy, product managery, and just general encouragement of AI stuff at PostHog and think hard about the market and stuff and what we want to build there. And like Tim today is like running around just across like kind of everything, looking at like, are we like paying engineers the right amount of money to retain really strong people or attract good talent to the company? Are we like, how do we do cross-sell in our sales team? How are we thinking about like when should we do the next fundraise? Like all this kind of stuff. So being project-based has meant that we're just like really leaning into the thing we are actually good at, which is getting something to start happening, and then quickly giving it to someone who can run it competently once it's at scale. So we'll design, Tim and I kind of design how the company works, and then, but try very hard not to steady state be running everything, because we're just not as good at it. And then execs are particularly strong at running things smoothly. But it's really like we are coming with ideas and execs are doing them. It's not, I think some people bring in execs to like figure out revenue or something, which I think is a failure mode for a lot of, not all, but for a lot of companies, because it turns out that if you come up with the product in the first place, you're just in a better spot to sell it, even if you have no sales experience. And so that's been really, really important. It's just like, don't assume because one of you is more technical than the other that like, don't just like walk into your jobs. I think the other part of this is very important and unspoken so far is like, we enjoy our jobs. Like I will also not work on things, even if I'm good at them, I won't do them if I don't like them. Once you've got a team, you can kind of get to that point. Because we're like, well, philosophically, like we want to build for a really long time. Like we want to build tons of products and just keep going and going. The core component, like almost one of the most basic things is just like not giving up.
Enjoying it?
Which I think is not spoken about very much. But if you're having fun, you will probably do a much better job, basically, and be able to do it for much longer. And so we do prioritize like you actually enjoying like I know you're supposed to be doing X, but like you actually enjoying it or not. If the answer is no, it's like cool, we need to figure out how to not have you working on this because you're going to have to do 10 or 20 more years of this thing, kind of thing. I would say very strongly, like even I would prioritize how much you enjoy it way over your technical experience in that area, kind of thing. Because if you're kind of like idiot that joins an early startup or is running one, like you're inherently probably quite a flexible person, so you can pick up skills. Don't just like lock yourself in. I think it's something we've really learned.
Okay, so we're going to move to questions in 10 minutes time. So be thinking of questions. We've got t-shirts and caps. And I think that's a really important point. I always ask founders if they're enjoying what they're doing, because to me it feels like you can always tell when somebody's having a hard phase versus really hating it. And this is the number one cause of startup death, I think, versus running out of money. How do you think about your personal social media? You have like
if at all.
No, but you have quite like a persona, right? Like how much of that is intentional?
It's a good question. I've been asked to justify this quite a few times.
So
I haven't done my homework. I basically, I think on social media. Okay, so I started off on social media. I was like, okay, it's not been our main driver of growth, but I was like doing content. I would write about what we're learning as business, and I'm like, these posts go a little bit viral. For us at that stage, relatively viral. Like we might get like 100 likes or a couple 100 likes if we're lucky on something. So I'd like write a blog post, then put it into social, then like create something on Twitter or whatever. But it was quite time consuming. And then I just like slightly randomly started shitposting. And then sometimes I'm like, man, in like literally 8 seconds, I can, instead of having to like very thoughtfully like write out a whole essay or something, in 8 seconds, I can get like 1,000 times more traction on something. And then you get like 50,000 likes on something that makes fun of meetings, which is also a very easy topic to write about. And so I was like, in an ideal world, basically, I'm like, okay, I should actually be like doing some shit posting to raise general awareness and some useful content. When I get busier, the useful content stops happening, and it's just shit posting, which is probably a bad thing. So every time we like do it, we do these like feedback sessions internally sometimes where we have dinners with teams. So like if you're in a team of 6 people or something, you sit quietly and then everyone else gives you direct feedback, and then you move to the next person around the circle, so you go around the circle multiple times. Very stressful, but very, very helpful often. every time everyone's from me, like, it would just be divided. It'd be like half people like you're shitposting way too much, and the other half like you should be doing much more of this.
Shitposting.
Yeah, it should be like more offensive, like more out there. So I think it has generically worked, and it's like relatively expensive. It's not like a needle moving thing for us. But like I'm like empirically, I'm just every time I talk to someone, they're like, we have the people we don't like. I think the kind of person that would take offense at stupid stuff is like. Yeah, they're just not our person anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then some people are like, this is kind of dumb, I should just not follow him. Or they're like, it's actually quite amusing. Great, kind of thing. So I don't really think there's any downside to us. There's only upside or neutral. So, yeah.
How do you think about, I have so many more questions to ask you, but I think we're running out of time. Why don't more founders build companies differently? Like why, like talking to you, I'm just, even things like going around the table, like I've done that before, but again, I know that that's still quite unusual as a practice of like being open to totally being silent while you get hard feedback. Like, why don't more founders build companies differently? I actually think this comes down to evolution a little bit. Like, I feel like people are sort of trained. This is actually something that shocked me about even the concept of starting my own company. So like, when I met, I've got this, like, he's not really my uncle. He's like kind of my uncle. That sounds really creepy. Really unclear how they're related to each other.
I could explain it, but it would be long.
It might take
It'd be worse than the hedgehog thing. But he's like, I was like half thinking about leaving my job because I was like, I want to do my own thing. And he's like, you're such an idiot for not leaving your job. It's so obvious to me you should like just do your own thing at this point. And in the particular situation I was in. And I was like, yeah. And I just left this thing where he like, it kind of inspired me to do my own thing, being like, oh, I've just been like really thinking like a lemming so far in the job before. I was so eager to help that like it didn't even occur to me that like actually like this is just not working, or I just hadn't stepped out enough. I think people have a very strong tendency to follow because like in the wild, back in the day, you would have got like killed by wild animals or something if you didn't have some mates. And so there's a very big downside to standing out a long time ago. And I think it has like followed humans all the way through where, oh, this looks like out of kilter to be like taking the piss on the internet or doing sales in an all inbound way or something. So I think like it's just a natural human. I think humans will over-index on copying very strongly because of this. And so I think it's kind of. I don't even think it's fear. I don't think it's conscious. Like how Tim and I just started as like CEO and CTO, kind of just like that because it's what we didn't think about it. But when we did start thinking about it, we're like, no, we don't think this is right. And I would say like if you're going to try, I would be surprised if anyone builds like a Google-sized company in future that looks the same as every other company. Like surely you're just going to be average. So I think it's a kind of right to question. I often think, frankly, a lot of things work in any direction and none of it even matters. And people are like over-intellectualize the importance of like how things work. So I just like, I think for us, like the guiding star is not like what is a sales playbook that you're supposed to have. It's much more like, okay, like this is who we're building for. What do we think these people want? How do we do a really good job for them? And if you're like working backwards, for us, it's like our product strategy comes from that. And then the way we're structured comes from our product strategy. It's like if you can connect it through to the particular audience you are caring about, I think you can't go that wrong, even if it looks really weird to the world at large. Because loads of people, in the early days, we would be like, oh, why are we reinventing sales or marketing or whatever? But those have been like the best things we've done in many ways, I would say. And product strategy too. Like you're not supposed to build all the products, for example.
But why not?
But yeah, exactly. And it makes you stand out, it makes it easy to market and grow and build growth. So you can be successful. I'm sure we could have like built some other version of the company where we had a much more conventional playbook. We may be making more money at this point in time, but I think our longer term growth would be hampered quite a lot by that because I just don't think we'd stand out enough at scale, basically.
Okay, final question. If we're thinking about timelines and horizons and thinking big enough, if we're talking in short-term horizons, 10 years, and PostHog is successful beyond our wildest dreams, what does that look like?
Well, I would hope we get to the point where there's a couple of, I think there's Josh is it. So some engineers are like, oh God, please don't say this. I think PostHog gets to the point where we offer business autonomy to people over a very long time frame.
What does that mean?
Basically, if we at the moment we help people understand their customer data. So we have lots of different. We have like multi-dimensional customer data across all these different products we have. So it'd be like if you're looking at a painting, we have quite a lot of the colors to understand the painting. The customer is underpinning. It's like the core reason that a company exists is to serve their customers. And so the more and more products you build, the richer our understanding. So if you have like very thin data from just one product on a customer, and you try and automate something off the back of that, you'll be like, oh, the customer has not used our second product. We should send them a gazillion emails to convince them to cross-sell onto this new thing. But what might be happening is in support, the customer might be like, you've invoiced us the wrong amount of money, product's not performing, I'm really angry. It's like exactly the wrong thing to do. In the same way that like AI can often be like a bit misguided because it's only indexed on like text or whatever. And so I kind of feel like, okay, we can fundamentally get like very rich data on customers by having all these products. We have like orders of magnitude more customers than everyone else in our industry because we've got bottom-up growth kind of happening. And on the other side of it, it's like, well, we're starting to help employees. We're having a big push to be a doing company. Like we've been primarily a read-only company so far. Like we give you a sense of what people are doing. Yeah. We're trying to get to the point where like we just do it for you. For the same reason that like you'd use Uber over like going on Google, looking for a local taxi company, ringing up 3 of them, blah, blah, blah. You just want to drunkenly mash a button on your phone. And so that's how developers should be building products. But like that's sort of what we think will happen. But I think it will apply not just to developers, but like support people, like salespeople, marketing people, and so on, where there's going to be a human steering this and adjusting the like autonomy slider for their business. But I feel like it will be possible to not just like ship a pull request based on like users getting stuck at your product, but and then to like release it behind a feeture flag and learn from the change, or whatever. But also for like in a sales meeting, it's like, oh, here are all the next steps that have been outlined in a cool transcript from like a tool like Granola, for example. But like this should then feed into like, okay, let's like we have a messaging product, we should queue up the emails to go out, we should schedule the next meeting, blah 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 blah. So if we go further and further and we start looking at how employees are doing things, I think it will then start to be possible to go, well, we have input, we have all this data on not just the customer, but what employees are doing, which means that you have the whole business.
Put that together,
And so like the input data could be like an email or something. And like, so the input for like the API could be like, oh, it's like an email, and then here's the response from the business or something. Who knows? Yeah, quite a lot. There's just like a lot
of course.
to build.
I love it.